Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Hot Mic. It's about to get hot. Let's get straight to it. Nathan the Barbarian with you, your host and moderator. Let's bring in the crew so everybody can say hello, and then we'll get started. What's going on? We got Brother Dre with us. What's up, brother? Curse breakers.
Man, watch out. Watch out.
How you
How
doing,
y'all
bro?
doing? I'm
Good to
on
see you,
point.
man.
Good to
Good to
see
see you as always. TNT, how you doing? T. Nicole Taylor.
I'm doing good. How is everybody?
Yeah, thank you for your time. Tarris Troy Horton, how you doing, sir?
What's up, everybody? Good to be here.
My partner in this endeavor, Kevin Aldridge, aka the voice of reason. How you doing, sir?
Hey, happy Tuesday. Who day? Bengals got that win on Sunday. I'm good. I'm in a good mental space today. Ready to get popping.
While Phil isn't here, if I could get like 30 seconds uninterrupted, I kind of would appreciate that, because I know when Phil gets back on, I don't get that. I just want to take a moment to share this disclaimer with everybody, to let everybody know that my dialogue is not meant to defame or harm anyone. I'm simply expressing my thoughts and creativity, such as the style of a shock jock. So this is a heads up that I just strive to have reasonable conversation in this speech, and my speech on this podcast is protected by my First Amendment right, and I am not out to harm or defame anybody with my commentary or rhetoric. This is simply how I speak and how I talk, and it's not meant to defame anybody. So that's my disclaimer for any of my actions here, future and past, on this podcast. I just want to put that disclaimer out there, and I got it off before Phil got a chance to interrupt me. Today's a good day.
Well, speaking of that, I got some calls from the Russian embassy and the Indian embassy. Apparently, they were deeply offended by it. They didn't say who, but one of the participants on the show who constantly derided, their countries, their nationality, and all. And, I said, well, I don't know what to say, but I didn't even use your name, Tarris, because I didn't want to put you in a position of jeopardy. But, I said we'd try to control you as best we could.
Control is the wrong word, but go ahead.
And by the way, I do want to thank my friend Kevin, who kind of gave me a compliment. He texted me after the last show, and he thanked me for not interrupting him so he could get all of his thoughts out. And I appreciate that. But I do need to say that's the reason the show dragged on so long last time, is that he wasn't interrupted.
Shots fired. Shots fired. You know what? We're all Cincinnati.
I'm gonna hold my powder, Nathan. It's too early. I'm gonna hold my powder. I'm gonna let him get that. I'm gonna let him get that off right now. I'm a patient man.
Appreciate it. So the Bengals won yesterday.
Like Donald Trump. You always get even.
Yes, he does. So the Bengals won yesterday 17-16 in a big road victory against arch rival. We won the first game of the Battle of Ohio. Afterward, I saw a lot of people online, and even some local, at least one talk show host, they referred to it as an ugly win. Can we forever and always put that phrase to bed? It's an oxymoron. A win is always beautiful. I don't care if it's a half a point. Do we all agree? There is no such thing as an ugly win in professional sports.
I don't agree with that. Come on, Nathan. I don't agree with that. I mean, it was an ugly win. They lucky that the kicker was absolutely horrible. He was horrific. He was terrible by every means. I don't know why he's in the pros. And then you had to look at, it was a 4th and 1, and they actually gave it back to Cleveland, which was absolutely ridiculous. You in the NFL, you don't play to win. You can't gain 1 yard, and you give it back to Cleveland. And luckily they got an interception, or you could have forgot that whole scenario. So absolutely ugly, horrible win. It's a win. We got it. We up first place in the league, but terrible display and showing by the Cincinnati Bengals.
Hey Nathan, I would agree.
Kevin, you want to jump in here?
I do. I would say, because I called it an ugly win too. It was ugly. We've also had some beautiful losses. So what I'll say is we had a lot of beautiful losses last year, and we lost games last year in the same way the Cleveland Browns did. We lost at least 2 games where our kicker missed some easy field goals. Hey, this is the NFL. It happens. And as they say, more games are lost than are won in the NFL. You know, the Baltimore Ravens, to be the best, gave up a 15-point lead at the end of the game. It's the NFL. It happens. Wins are hard to get. We'll take them. I've had my share of heartbreaking Bengals losses when Joe Burrow came out and threw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, and we lost by 3. Hey, ain't nobody turning away no win. I don't care how you got it, whether they field goal kicker get fired today or not. I don't care. We've lost the home openers the last few years. I'm going to take it.
And can somebody back me up? There is no such thing as an ugly win.
Not today, but I am happy to be 1-0. But that was hard. And I'm a fan. I like to talk my stuff. And I got people up in Cleveland that, you know, the first quarter, yeah, but after that, it was quiet. It's just because you damn near is having a heart attack the whole game. Like, that's not the way we want to win. I mean, and then like Brother Dre said, like, if it really wasn't, they beat themselves. If it wasn't for the kicker, you know what I mean? That game by 1 point could have went the other way, and it would have just been the same sad song. And even if you looked at the analysis, they didn't really have anything to say. Our main people really didn't get to shine. Chase and I can't think of his name, number 5, but he didn't get to shine. They was real quiet, and so it was just like, yeah, we'll take it, but that's not the way we want to do it. I mean, all this hype around all these other teams and the Bengals, we really have a chance to like really be out there, really shine. And that first game didn't show us at our very best.
I want to give a shout out to Myles Garrett, though. He played a heck of a game on the defensive end. I mean, nobody could stop him. And I agree with what Brother Dre said. That 4th and 1 play, we didn't see enough P-Ryan dump off. If they can't stop Myles Garrett, why didn't they just put P-Ryan in and dump it off and do some screen? I know we're all armchair quarterbacks, but, you know, that's just basic. And on 4th and 1, you punt it away whenever, you know, like that was a tough one. That was a tough one. That was in my humble opinion, that was the most important win in Bengals in my lifetime. Because I know if they would have lost that game yesterday, I was done with them. I was done, and because I was done with them before they got rid of Marvin Lewis. Like, I'm just one fan, but that's time, emotion, money that I'm putting in this franchise. And if they, you know, that's just. I'm gonna put it somewhere else. That's on real, and I'm a diehard Bengal fan like everybody else. But that was just my take on it.
Hey, you know how many times, Nathan, I've said exactly what Tarris did after a loss. Like, I'm done with the Bengals. I ain't doing. And here I sit, you know, some 51 years later, still root. You either a fan or you ain't. And I look at it like this. Like I said, it's hard to win in the NFL. The Bengals, you can question Zach Taylor not going for it. But he punted it and they won. Their defense stepped up. They got the turnover. Baltimore punted it and they lost. So it's always this Monday morning quarterback about what should have been done. The right decision is the one that got you the W. And he got the W by punting it. If they had gone for it and gotten stopped, that's an automatic loss. There's no question that they would have lost the game right there in that moment. So you can Monday morning quarterback second guess. The right decision is the one that worked out, and it worked out for him. So
Phil, please bring some sanity to this conversation. Back me up on this. There is no such thing as an ugly win. All wins are beautiful.
Well, let me say that in listening to all of you, you remind me of all of you of a former well-known sports commentator, Howard Cosell. If you're familiar with him, are you guys familiar with Howard Cosell?
Yes,
of course.
Okay, and what I'm saying is, in other words, it's not a compliment.
What isn't a compliment?
Mike Harrison, compare you to Howard Cosell.
I get it.
But I do want to say, Tarris, don't don't let Mike Brown and Katie and those guys know about your, how close they came to losing your support. I mean, it will just break them up. They will be
Like I said,
heartbroken.
so
Be gentle. If you do decide to give up the Bengals, just be gentle about it. Let them know kind of slowly. Don't break it to them all at once.
Phil, see, that's the difference between you and I. There's other people who feel like me, but you're afraid to say stuff when I'm not. There's other people who feel the exact same way as me because I was sitting right next to them. They was like, if they lose this game, I'm done with them. I've heard everybody I was around said the same thing. You're just afraid to say things because you walk on eggshells. I live on eggshells.
Oh, me, I'm afraid to say things. Oh, that's one thing I've never been accused of, being afraid to say things. Saying stupid things or obnoxious things, but being afraid to say things? No, that's a new one.
Well, thank you, Janice, for backing me up. She understands. Clearly, none of y'all play professional sports, right? None of y'all play professional sports. Not that I did either. But a win is a win. Against the Browns on the road, take that any day of the week. Listen, if the Bengals won every game this year just like that, they're still going to the playoffs. Every win is beautiful, but we can agree to disagree. I want to welcome in the audience. You got people here. Jerome writes, hello, 513. Hello, Jerome. And Blessed or Messy writes, hello, Nathan, Nicole, and panelists. Vanita writes, good afternoon. Steban writes, good afternoon. Darren writes, salutations, good to see you. Terry writes, good afternoon, everyone. Regina is here. Thank you so much for being here. I mean, you could be anywhere in the World Wide Web right now, but you're here with us, and I really appreciate it. Nat writes, good Tuesday, Nate and crew. Brenda's here with us as well. Happy Tuesday to everybody. Hey, what's up, Terry and Pamela? Good to see you. And let's get into it. Let's just jump straight into some local news. And this seems like this was an attempt, or it is an attempt, to deal with the burden put on law enforcement. But the city manager put out a memo this week restricting the operating times of food trucks in downtown Cincinnati. So starting September 9th, that's today. That's today. Food trucks will no longer be able to operate after 11 p.m. downtown. From what I read, apparently they feel like, people will leave the bars and then they'll be congregating around the food trucks, and then something might happen. And then that means that law enforcement might have to show up, and then that takes them some other places or something like that. To me, I think it's a terrible idea. I think it doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't think it's going to have the intended impact they think it is. But the other way of looking at it is, hey, we got all this focus on Cincinnati about crime. They've got to do something, and we all got to make concessions. So this is a concession. What do you think? Is this a good idea? Have food trucks always been the problem all along, and we just never knew?
Horrible idea. Man, it seems like this city council is just it's like spaghetti against the wall. They're throwing anything against the wall to see what will stick, to make it seem like they're doing something to address this crime problem. And I know we're going to get into this and the money that they're spending to attack crime, but I think it's like they're wise decisions, they're smart decisions, and then there are decisions that just absolutely make no sense. If you want to address people being out late, then close the clubs. Okay, if the problem is the behavior of but they're not going to do that. They're not saying close the nightclubs. They're saying that the food trucks, which are serving hungry people, and we all know back in the day when we was out in them streets hitting the clubs or doing whatever, when you come out the club, you hungry.
Hey, speak for yourself, Kevin. Okay.
Well, Phil, we know
you generalize.
We know the Herman Hermits jams ain't really popping like that. So I wouldn't expect you to know about that. But that's a prime time for a business like that to make money is after that, because there's generally very few things that are open, and when people come out, they're hungry. So my thing is if you're concerned about people congregating and that sort of thing, shut the clubs up early, right? Why are you attacking the food trucks? And it sends a bad message to me that the city values some businesses over other businesses, right? So they're concerned about downtown businesses, just not those downtown businesses with the food truck. It sends a bad message. It's a bad policy. It's a stupid policy. And quite frankly, I hope the Food Truck Association and some others push back on this a little bit harder, because I think it's a discriminatory practice that the city is trying to do. And I don't even really think it's going to be effective and solve the issues that Cincinnati is trying to solve. If you're going to spend all this extra money on overtime for police, and you're like, oh, you don't want police to have to police it, then what are we paying them the extra overtime money for? What are we bringing additional police officers downtown for? If that's the case, then save some of that overtime money. If you ain't going to use them to police the food trucks or whatever downtown, stupid.
Real quick, I reached out to, and then I want to hear from Brother Dre, because he's got all the experience. I'm definitely want to hear what he has to say about this. But I reached out to the president of the Cincinnati Food Truck Association. She wasn't able to make it today, just business, whatever. But she is tentatively scheduled to be with us on Friday, just so a heads up. But go ahead, Brother Dre.
Yes, sir. Point blank, robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's a terrible, terrible decision by the city manager once again. She proves she has no clue of what she's doing. And this is horrible, not just for the businesses that make a majority of their money when people leave. Now, when people leave the clubs, I don't believe in shutting down the clubs early. The bottom line is, let me bring people up on education. Right now, every police officer in the city gets time and a half for overtime details. So if they do details, it's time and a half, which means they get a check every 2 weeks on their check, and it's taxed greatly. Now, what people don't know is before the establishment, the bar establishment would pay the police officer directly, either in cash or per hour, and they would get them a check right at the end of the detail. That's now stopped. So officers have stopped doing the details because the city decided to come up with this ridiculous notion to put all time and a half on the city check. So now it's affected everybody. It's a terrible decision. Once again, this is an administration and leadership.
Dre, what's the difference? I don't understand the difference between.
Okay, the difference is, Brother Phil, you're going to pay me right now after I do my 4 hours of work versus I got to wait 2 weeks and it's going to get taxed severely.
Okay? If you don't mind my asking, are you suggesting that if these bar owners, shall we say, pay you in greenbacks, that therefore it is not taxable?
It is still taxable. It is still taxable, but that will be accounted by the officers and their tax according to the process. So it's shown that it's been proven. We have done it for years. This is the first year that they went to everything being a time and a half, which now taxes the bar. So imagine a bar that was once paying you $45 an hour, got to pay you $65 an hour or $70 an hour. It hurts the businesses. And this is why the food trucks won't even get a detail. And this is the idiotic stuff that the city keeps doing that hurts the taxpayers. So officers are not going to sign up for additional details when they could get paid the same day within 4 hours.
Makes sense. Anybody else jump in? What are your thoughts? Good idea, bad idea with ban? Are we missing something? Because in the article I read, it said that that the manager took the input from the Cincinnati police.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, so, maybe it's something it's a blind spot. Maybe we just don't see it. Is there anything to it, Brother Dre, in your opinion, or?
No, there's nothing to it. I mean, because why is it now something going on with it now? When for 30 years, we never had a problem with bars and details downtown. You had certain things that would come up, and if the bar establishment was causing a lot of havoc, then they would just shut the bar down. But as far as managing the people, you would have plenty of police officers that would be out monitoring the bars afterwards, and you didn't have this many issues going on. Now, all of a sudden, it's a big major problem. Why? Because the whole notion of there's less police, but now with this additional time and a half, I'm telling you, because the officers have told me the worst decision that they made on the contract, and it's backfiring.
You know what? I wanted to check and make sure the same thing, because that's what I thought I read in the article as well. Like, this conversation was spurred from the police. That was their idea. And so, of course, in this whole span of just like trying to do something about crime when you can't stop crime, but more or less you can reduce crime, I don't see that being an effective measure. If you're getting food, you're probably not committing crimes. You know what I'm saying? If you eat food, you're not committing crimes. I'm in the food industry. I'm a caterer myself. And so I know that industry is difficult right now, just with the cost of things going up. And then on top of just, if you have a food truck, all the maintenance. And so that's a critical and good time to make money, and to take that away from those individuals. That's harsh. I hope that the association gears up everybody that has a food truck, go down to City Hall and make the case and really argue and advocate for that to be returned, because that doesn't seem like a real effective measure to reduce crime in Cincinnati. And like I think that was Kevin who said, if that's the case, if something happens, who we're punishing next? The bars? Are they doing anything to scale back on or see who's serving up the customers with alcohol? Like, I think that may be more of a problem that you can execute and make sure that people are penalized, or bars are penalized, who are excessively serving alcohol, more than just people waiting for food. But then we go back to the economy. If like we're trying to grow this economy, that nightlife, if you go to other cities and travel other places, it don't stop. And if we're making the investment in police to be, more bodies, more boots on the ground or whatnot, then like Kevin said, what are we paying them for? So why take away money out of the pockets of these small business owners that need that pocket of time to make money? And there's money to be made. People after the clubs do not want to go to White Castles or whatever establishment, which is really nothing. When it's over, it's over. And that doesn't mean the people that really want to commit crimes and do things are going in because it's nothing to eat. If people want to commit crimes, they're out there anyway, regardless. So I just hope that, people can come together and really manage that a little bit better.
I want to speak from an entrepreneurial standpoint. Like, there's somebody, it takes a special breed of person to run your own business, and you have to find your niche. And like everybody stated in here, the food industry, that time of night, is a very niche audience and a niche brand. And it takes a special type of person to do it because it fits a necessary need. If you could, like TNT said, I'm just thinking of Austin, Texas. If you try to handicap Austin, Texas like that, you would cripple their entire nightlife economy, because when you go out of a bar in Austin, Texas on 6th Street, you're going to see a food truck that's just it's simultaneously together. And so doing that to the food trucks, in my opinion, from an entrepreneur standpoint, I think it's taken away their pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. How can you handicap them from trying to go get money whenever they want to get money? That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they're essentially going to put businesses out of business, because as TNT said, the cost of food and everything, and just simply doing that business, I imagine the margins are already thin. And then you're taking out a prime time on weekends. Like, this isn't, we're not talking about like Monday through Thursday. Like, this is weekend. This is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like prime time for these businesses. Cincinnati should be in the business of helping businesses succeed, not putting them out of business. And I think the other thing is, where is the data to support that these food trucks are a problem? I don't want to hear no anecdotal stuff from police. I need to see some specific reports, crime data that says these food trucks are creating crime problems for the city. They talked about how it's creating problems for other business. What the hell other businesses is open at 3 or 4 in the morning downtown that these food trucks and people congregating could be creating a problem for?
I think it's residents.
This is the type of stuff. Huh?
I think it's downtown residents. I think downtown residents are complaining about downtown nightlife. I know,
bro, that's what when you move downtown.
Believe me, I'm with you, bro. But I remember reading an article about about a month and a half ago, and people were complaining about the noise coming from Love on Fourth, and apparently people that live above it. I'm thinking, wait a minute,
You
like
knew
you
that
just
when
said,
you moved
you
in.
knew that when right, but we live in a world where people want what they want. It
Yeah,
don't matter
no.
whether it's right or not.
Yeah,
I feel
no.
inconvenienced. I want to live downtown. I don't want to hear any noise. I don't want to hear anything I don't want to hear. I don't want to see anything I don't want to see. There's people like that. And they will complain and complain and complain. And it looks like somebody is finally listening because, city leadership is under so much pressure.
Hey, bro, I feel like this. When you move downtown, and especially if you move into a downtown, which with Cincinnati, relatively speaking, compared to other cities, Cincinnati is about as dead after about 10 or 11 anywhere as anywhere you will go in the United States. So it ain't like you got a ton of stuff going on in Cincinnati late anyway. But if you're trying, but most downtowns that are worth their salt have late night activities going on. You have festivals, you have events, you have things that are going on. So, if you live in a downtown environment, this is part and parcel to what comes in living in downtown in a city that's actually trying to be about something. If you want quiet, move out to the suburbs, move out to some of these other communities where you can have that peace and quiet. But downtowns are generally supposed to be hubs of activity where things are happening. And if you old and you don't want to deal with that type of noise or whatever, then don't purchase property downtown.
That part.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, and I also read from the Cincinnati Food Truck Association that they weren't contacted. They had no open line of communication. The city had never told them anything about any late night disruptions or anything. So it goes back to what you said, Kevin. Somebody told me this a long time ago, and it's 100% true. Pressure busts pipes, but it also creates diamonds. And what we're seeing right now is that the pressure that the city manager's office and that the mayor's office and the city council is getting because of the perception on crime is making them crack up. They don't know what to do, and they're trying to do anything and everything to try to get the pressure off of them. And it says something about their leadership. Anybody can be a leader when there are no problems. Anybody can do that. But what are you going to do when the pressure comes? When you're in a tense situation? That's the true mark of a leader. And there's about 6 people on council, and I don't like what I'm seeing at all. And for what I'm reading and what I'm seeing, there's a lot of other Cincinnatians who are seeing the same thing. And it's a big disappointment. You got people that got a D in front of their name, but they acting like Republicans. Well, just be a Republican then. Or don't be a Democrat at all.
Now, that's a very insulting thing for you to say about them. That's very unfair.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
so,
I'm not here to be fair. I'm here to be a barbarian.
well, one thing I will say, with this administration is that their level of responsiveness and as far as listening to everybody. You could have an administration like what we have more on a national level that does not take into consideration their opposition at all. And at the very least, it has to be acknowledged, even if, it may not feel good on our side or in certain situations that, they're trying to listen and take account of every idea and every situation and not just be, one-sided on how they resolve this issue. But again, it is on us to elevate our voice and advocate and say, hey, wait a minute, this way, if you only hear on one side, then it's easy to go to that one side. But, once you have all parties in the room, which I think they should have had the Trucking Industry Association before they made this decision to see like the impact. Of course, the objection would be there, but at least it would kind of coincide with the idea of just like hearing all sides and then being able to make an informed decision of like the best case scenario, what we can actually do. Because right now, like we said earlier, this is taking money out of, people's households. They're not going to be able to feed their families. They can easily shut down. This economy is going up and down, and people are already stretched to their limits. And so, we have to take all those things in consideration. I'm surprised that, they would make a decision like that without really thinking thoroughly of the impact it could be for people that are not, I feel like, the perpetrators of our issue right now. And I do feel like a lot of this is a manufactured problem created over something that people are using to their own political advantage.
Yeah, I mean, too many people are acquiescing to flat earthers. If I've been downtown almost every day the last week, been posting videos, having a great old time, but people are bending the wheel. And some of this is a little bit more than that. We're under a whole new political regime with on the federal level and the state level. They're all working in unison. So I understand that it's a different time that we're living in. So, to your point, TNT, part of this is they're looking at that too. This ain't 5 years ago. This is not even 2 years ago. This is a whole new thing that they're having to grapple with, because if they don't do enough, then our president might be making memes about coming to Cincinnati and taking over and things like that. And I fear that our Republican leadership would just stand back and let them do it. To that point, Mike DeWine is supposed to be in Cincinnati. Our governor is in Cincinnati at some point today. He could be here now discussing a partnership between the state and the city in terms of how to deal with crime. Is this a good idea? I mean, how do you look at this? Is DeWine a fair player in this? Is this much needed help? Brother Dre, what do you think? Does the Cincinnati Police Department need the Ohio State Police to come in and maybe the National Guard to come in? Do we need more state level help, in your opinion?
Well, we do need more officers around, but this is the situation. When you did defund the police, there was going to be, every action is going to have a reaction. And when you get rid of District 5 and you start to cut down officers and people saying, oh, we hiring too many police, and you are building a community. So you have more areas going up. Everywhere you look, there's more buildings going up. That means more population, and you reduce police. And so where any area is exploding and building, you're going to have higher crime rates. So to balance it out, you need more police. So we are under 200 officers, and officers continue to retire every day. So to even reach that complement, they're behind. So now all of a sudden it's, oh shoot, we can't balance out the numbers. We need help. We need help. I don't mind the OSP doing traffic. I don't mind that. Bringing in the National Guard is a little extreme. That's extreme. But I told people that if they highly publicize every incident that occurs now in Cincinnati, this is exactly what you're going to get based on these issues. And until you get new leadership that knows how to balance these issues, you're going to keep getting knee-jerk reactions like, oh, you know what? Let's get rid of the food trucks. Let's do a curfew with the young people. Let's start charging the parents. And none of it has been proven to work because you didn't balance it out. And this is what you get when you get foolishness in office. And I've said it before, Cheryl Long doesn't have a clue about what she's doing in that office. And this is another proof. Even when she fired the chief, the fire chief, and guess what? He's shown he won his lawsuit, and he's gonna get his money back. Guess who pays for it? The city. So people need to understand who they have in leadership, making these ridiculous, stupid decisions that will continue to happen, that hurts the taxpayers and people who want to just go downtown and have a good time.
I don't necessarily care for the attack on Black women, protect Black women. I think she does good in her leadership, and I'm not going to go for the politics. A lot of people are playing politics when it comes to these situations. And as it relates to the police, many have, like, there was no defund campaign here in Cincinnati. Matter of fact, from my understanding, it takes up close to like 60% of the budget, or at least majority of the budget is on police, fire, and whatnot. So there is a lot of things happening internally, and you probably can speak to that. I know a lot of Black police officers that are retired now, and they're good. You know what I'm saying? They're doing their own things, and they don't really care about their experience there because the internal things that's going on within CPD is a problem, long-standing issues. And so the emotional or how some of these people are feeling like they don't get to police the way they want to police. They don't care for the accountability, that portion of it. You're public servants. You're here to enforce the law and serve the public. And so when we get into these debates about police and community relations and accountability, then it's always certain ones, and usually the bad ones, that take offense to leadership that is actually holding people accountable, leadership that are doing proactive things to bring crime down, which the statistics show, even despite the low amount of, or if we're not at the amount of officers that we were prior, we still managed to bring down crime. And so even with all of that, I'm not going for the politics and the political hacks and the political agenda that some people have toward certain people in office right now. They're not doing a terrible job to me, but at the same time, to each his own. People have their opinions. Can we do better? There's always room for improvement, of course. But I'm not going to take these isolated situations when the overall has been good, and it has been good for the city, and the city is thriving.
Just to respond to that, Sister TNT, that's not accurate. The numbers have proven if you take an entire District 5 out of a community in College Hill and you completely move it and dissect it to District 3 that's on Ferguson Avenue, then the community in College Hill who had a police department right there at Cedar and Hamilton no longer has that District 5 there. So you have people who have to travel to either District 4 that's in the Avondale, or travel to District 1 that's downtown, or travel to District 3. So the community has suffered the travel time ago. So those areas now, the Avondales, the College Hills, those areas are have a higher violent crime rate, which is a fact. And North Side used to have District 5.
College Hill, really? I'm from
Yes.
College Hill. I was born and raised in College Hill, and
Yes.
it's completely different now.
It's different.
It is
Check the
not.
numbers.
I know, but and I remember that, and it was kind of like a hole in the wall. I thought the situation there that they needed something bigger, actually.
I thought it was also health related.
For the most part, I think it was all kind of like a transition. It's more to it than just like taken away from a community, but the crime there, that whole neighborhood is completely different. People are going to the shops, they're walking their dogs. It's almost just like it's not what I remember growing up. And even growing up, College Hill wasn't a terrible neighborhood by no means. So moving that out of there and putting it toward the west side, Westwood, where there's probably more elevated crime, that makes sense to me. But to each
does anybody else share Brother Dre's critique of the city manager? That again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're saying there needs to be a change of leadership with the city manager. Anybody else share that? Phil, Tarris, Kevin?
I wouldn't necessarily say that I know for certain that there needs to be a change in leadership. I certainly think that the city manager is open to scrutiny and criticism just as any other public official is, and I don't think it's a matter of black or gender. Like if you're using that, I always say the work speaks for itself. If you're critical of her because she's a woman or because she's black, then I think that's where you get into some of the questionable politics. But if you're speaking directly to decisions that she's made, I think that's fair. I think that's fair and fertile ground. And we got to stop saying that if somebody's work or their actions are not producing the results, that we get into this sexism and racism stuff. Look, the work has got to speak for itself at some point. And the city manager's jobs, like a school superintendent job, is an incredibly difficult job. It's a meat grinder. Most of them don't last more than a couple, 2 or 3 years, whether that's in Cincinnati or in some other place, because it's hard. It's hard because of the politics. It's hard because of the issues. So I think it's fair to look at what Cheryl Long has done, just like we're going to look at people on city council and the mayor and look at the work that they've done and what fruits have they bore. If she has not borne much fruit in that job, then she's going to have to weather and bear that criticism. If her stewardship and leadership has not resulted in the change that people want, that's fair ground. And I think that's whether you're black, woman, black, white, man, woman, whatever, the work got to speak for itself.
Yeah, I would like to believe that, but history has shown me that black people and especially black women are not always judged by the fruits that they bear. Sometimes people, there's a lot of black people that produce on the job, but because of their gender and because of their skin color, look at Barack Obama. People see what they want to see. They project what they want to project onto them, and we can't act like that don't happen. And it's not happening with Cheryl Long. I think that she's made this decision with the food trucks. I don't agree with it. People have brought up what happened with the fire department chief. I don't know enough about it. I don't know. I do know the city gets lawsuits every single day. The police cost the city every single day. So that's a part of governance. That's a part of a city. And sometimes you can lay that on the desk of one individual here at other, but in every city in America, they're dealing with and losing and paying out because of lawsuits. That's just the way politics work. That's the way government works.
Yeah.
To me.
I think the reality, I think the reality of any top job is, Nathan, and whether we're talking about the city manager, the president of the United States, the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, the bottom line is you gotta win. You gotta produce results, because if you don't, if you have a stretch of bad things happen, a stretch of losses, people are going to hold you responsible, whether it is all your fault or not. That's just the reality of leadership, right? I mean, you can say what you want. People saw what they wanted to see out of Barack Obama, but he got elected to 2 terms. So that spoke to what people thought about the job that he did. If enough people didn't think he did a good job, he wouldn't have got reelected. Trump didn't get reelected after the first time. He got reelected, right? So things shift and change based on exactly what you said, how people see things. And so you got to be able to produce results that people equate to winning. If not, they are going to replace you. I don't care who you are. And that's the battle of being at the top. And it may not always be your fault.
What I'm saying is, in the world we live in, sometimes you produce results, especially in the world of politics, and you still get blamed. Mm-hmm. You got people out there that says, I hate Obamacare, but I love ACA. It's the same thing, but they're so caught up with politics and the games that they don't even know what they're talking about. And so the same thing can be true with Cheryl Long. I remember, and you when you did the mayoral candidate primary debate, one of the first things out of the candidate's mouth was he want to fire Cheryl Long. Made no sense whatsoever.
Right.
But it was just that she was a Democrat, she was a black female, and he was attacking her.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't know what he was talking about. He couldn't even articulate why. And later he retracted it. So you can produce in the world of politics and still get blamed because people have these distorted lenses. They're listening to different media channels that's feeding them lies and propaganda, and they really don't know what the truth is. And that could be true with Cheryl Long or not true.
Never underestimate the power of hate. Never underestimate it. And in the political arena, what gets people stirred up or even paying attention is these race baiting, actions, and then just these political targets or whatnot. And that's just like, one of the underlines. Okay, you Democrat, and you black and you're a woman, you know what I'm saying? And we know on the national level, there's definitely eyes on black women to take them down, take away their livelihood and take away their power. And it's almost kind of like a from the bottom down agenda. And so, like Nathan was saying, some of these like blatant attacks, it was some fool that went to one of the press conferences with a sign yelling out there before he heard anything or whatever. There is a target on her, on the mayor, you know what I mean, despite what anybody says. And so, I mean, you can like try to tie it neatly into some, other actions and everything else, but they are political targets, and that's known. And so I'm just not, falling for the banana and tailpipe type situation on all of that. I'm gonna be very skeptical and scrutinize everything when it comes to these things. I'm going to judge it for what I know and to make sure that the interest of the things that I care about and my community cares about is to the forefront. And in those aspects, I'm not disappointed. Everything can be improved. Everything can be better. But we're dealing with an administration that's willing to work with everybody.
Well, let me say this. There's a saying that I don't know what the key to success is, but the key to failure is trying to please everybody. And what we see here from administration is trying to please everybody. The bottom line is is that I don't care if you Democrat, Republican, male, female, let's just call it what it is on the fruits that you're portraying. And even which is a fact. This is not hearsay, this is a fact. Cheryl Long chose Chief Fiji. She was her selection. And even the officers gave her wisdom and instruction: do not choose Chief Fiji. And the things that we seen that were carried out from the Cincinnati police chief is from a decision that she should have never been in place, that the city manager has the power to select and hire. And these are decisions that we constantly see from not listening to individuals and not paying attention. I don't care if you black, white, Asian, or other. I want to deal with the facts, because at the end we all want to win. And us sometimes looking at, say, gender or color, and not looking towards the truth and getting past it. Guess what? We got to put a gender tag on it to attack individual. I don't care who you are. My point is, produce the fruit, and then let's go about it from there.
Isn't that just kind of like an oxymoron? You just said up there and said, like, everybody wants to win, but you can't please everybody. But there is something called compromise. You know what I mean? The police department, your stakeholders in Cincinnati, the community are stakeholders in Cincinnati, the business community are stakeholders in Cincinnati. And so there's a lot of voices that want to be heard. You know, like you say, everybody want to win. And everybody ain't going to be pleased either. So even in one end where you feel like she should have picked someone else or she shouldn't win, but that's just what you feel. But that don't make her a bad person or a bad leader or anything else until something proves otherwise. But again, I don't fall for all the political hacks. I know what this is.
That's not a political hack. That's true.
This is a steady drum beat that's being beat. If I listen to 700 WLW and Down and Down, this is a steady drum that they're beating. And so, you know, you just got to be careful with the narratives that's being put out there. You got to be careful with the people that are using. And the facts can also, you know, bear to the conclusion of why I feel the way I feel. So you feel the way you feel, I feel the way I feel. No right or wrong on either part, but it's just like we have to agree to disagree on that. That's all.
Yeah, I think you also got to look at, and a lot of people don't know this as well. I mean, a lot of this depends on how much homework you're going to do, how much you actually know. Like, a lot of people don't even know what the job of the city manager is, right? Like, you got a lot of people out there criticizing Cheryl Long, and I'm not making reference to Brother Dre or anybody on here. I'm just saying that there are a lot of people who are critical who don't understand what the city manager's job is. Now, one could say, okay, if you want to take Brother Dre's point, that she hired the police chief. Okay, people make hires all the time. The police chief is responsible for her decisions and the policies and things that she implements within the police department. And so if she's not doing a good job, that's on her. Now, you could say, okay, was that a bad hire? And should the city manager bear some responsibility for that? Maybe so. But at the end of the day, Chief Fiji, which I don't, and I say this all the time, you know, people are critical of police, but I have not heard her name mentioned nearly as much as you hear the names of Cheryl Long or Mayor Avtab Hureval or whatever. She is the chief of police. So if there's an issue with how policing is being done and crime is happening in this city, why do I not hear more people calling for her job? Instead, it's the mayor, it's the city manager, it's this, that, and that. She is the one who has the responsibility for running our police department. Am I incorrect? So if she is doing such an incompetent job, which I'm open to that conversation, I'm just saying I don't hear people hollering for that. I hear them hollering for Avtab and I hear them hollering for Cheryl Long, but the person whose job it is to address crime, like if she's third, she's far down the pecking order of people whose jobs are being called for.
Well, I'm saying it's a three-headed monster. You have the mayor, the city manager, then the chief. It's that three-headed monster. So the mayor's involved, and then the city manager has that power. They have the power. And I know for a fact, because when Cheryl Long came to our roll call and she said, who do you guys think is the best chief? At the time, It was Lieutenant Colonel Davis, who is also a female. She left and she's the chief at Texas because we wanted to say, hey, look, I want to see you succeed. I want to see you do great. So if I'm going to give you some advice to say that 90% of the police department said don't choose this person, so now you have to deal with it from the top down because they do have the power to actually fire her. But now this is where the politics come in because somebody in this whole process has to go. And is it all three go? Or is it somebody's going to have to fall on the side and eventually make a decision?
Well,
Phil, what's your take?
Again, I just go back. I'm sorry, Phil, go ahead. But I just go back to my take. The person whose job it is, whose primary job it is to address crime, they're the person who is primarily responsible. That's who I'm looking at first. So if they're doing a subpar job, then it's up to, if that's the city manager's call to take that, to address that with that person, then that is where the perhaps the pressure needs to be, is to say, well, hey, you know, city manager, you need to make a change, or you need to do this, that, and the other. Now, if that's not working and the manager is refusing to make a change, then, you know, maybe there's a little bit more to that, as you say. But
Hey,
to
if
me,
the
the
owner
first
of a
line of
coaching
defense is
staff,
if you are dissatisfied with crime, the first person in the crosshair ought to be the person who was hired to oversee that and do that job, not two people removed from that. That's just
well,
my
we talked about coaching, we talked about ownership, we talk about, hey, if you are owner of a football team, guess what? The owner is going to fire the coach and the GMs if they're not producing. And this is all about productivity, what's going on in our city. So if you look at the mayor as, say, the coach of the entire team, and this is what is happening, it's a reflection upon everybody. So turn the mindset that this is a major sports team and we got owners and we're still sitting around and we want a 0-17 season. No, we're not going to tolerate that. The coach would have to go.
All right. Phil, you were on council many years. How do you see it?
I think the most important thing the city has to do now is hire those 200 cops. I mean, and I was pleased that in that $5.4 million bill that they instituted, a lot of it's going to go for police overtime, which is, I think, the best use of their money. Because, I mean, the fact is, I know you guys say, oh, well, it wouldn't matter if cops were out during that brawl. Well, I happen to think if there were some cops out there walking the beat, I don't think that brawl would have ever gotten escalated, if at all, to the point that it did. As far as food trucks, I don't know anything about them, so I have nothing to say about that. I do want to say, just because Nicole brought it up, that I think that term, defund the police, was the stupidest thing that anybody could say, because, you know, all it did was it really helped Donald Trump and it helped people like him. Okay. Because that's the kind of thing you can't say, oh, well, just this person here on the far left said it. It doesn't work that way. It becomes identified with the political party. And first of all, when you press people on that, they go, oh, well, we don't really mean take money away. We mean add more social workers or something. Give me a break. You know, the average person doesn't get into the depths of the issue. All they hear is defund the police. And that's why when that kind of rhetoric started, like Representative James Clyburn, who was a very influential person in the House. I mean, he said it himself. Stop saying that, okay? Because it's like a dog whistle, okay, to the people who are Trump and people like that. So I think I just have to say that was that kind of rhetoric, I think, is really, really bad for the country.
Hey, Nathan, I just want to challenge Phil on one thing that he said. He said he wasn't going to comment on the food trucks because he didn't know anything about it. He doesn't know anything about most of the topics we talk about, but that doesn't stop him from commenting. So that cop out just don't fly. See, Phil, I can wait in the cut. I can lay in the cut and pay back.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest and saying I truly don't know. I mean, my guess is that there aren't a lot of studies showing that food trucks are a major cause of urban crime. Okay, but I honestly just don't know what the impact, and I don't know what led to that decision. So if you don't mind, I'm trying to be humble and say I really don't know anything about it.
Well, tomorrow, City Council is going to vote on this $5.4 million plan. I got a chance to watch some of the city cable. City cable is an underutilized resource in Cincinnati. It was a budget and finance committee. Didn't get a chance to watch all of it, but I got enough to absorb enough, I think, to give some thoughts on it. And what I thought was interesting, among other things, is that the chief was asking for $500,000 more for police and overtime. And it looks like City Council decided to upper, and they allocated 1.5. The other thing I thought was interesting is they're going to put more money. Matter of fact, here I've got some screenshots actually from it. We could check it out for ourselves. This was actually from the city manager's presentation to the Budget and Finance Committee, and you can just kind of peruse it. $500,000 for overtime. Again, the budget committee decided to put 1.5. I think it was Scotty Jobson who was like, wait a minute, police chief is not shy about asking what she wants. She asked for 500,000. Why are we putting 1.5 into it when we could be putting this money into the fire department or into other places? We can speculate as to why. They're also going to be ramping up more money into 3CDC. They're going to expand the ambassador program, $800,000 in over the Rhine. Outreach workers, youth outreach workers. They're going to be putting more money into drones as well. Get ready, as I told you. Next year, when you look up, when you're at the Cincinnati Music Fest, when you look up, you're going to see all kind of drones buzzing around. That's the new reality of the 21st century you live in. So they're putting more money into that project, and you can see some of the allocations there. And I thought was interesting, they've got about $380,000 that they allocated for these to take youth who have been taken off the streets because of the curfew. But what I thought was interesting is, to this point, they haven't used it at all. There's been no youth that have gone to these designated spots for curfew. But I guess it's just a drop in the bucket. Bravo to these nonprofits who are going to get $380,000 to this point for doing absolutely nothing. One can speculate that money could go somewhere else, but in general, it looks like Cincinnati and the council, Cincinnati City Council wants to send a message. They're going to put their money where their mouth is. They want to get tough on crime, even though crime is no more of an issue here than it is anywhere else. What do you think about this? Is this the right plan for Cincinnati right now?
No. It's like I said about the food truck. This is City Council throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what will stick.
Not spaghetti, or tax dollars.
First of all, just spending more money doesn't mean that that's a good thing if the money is foolishly spent. Okay. And there are a lot of things in this $5.4 million that you can see that's foolishly spent. You started it with the curfew centers. I ain't against nobody getting a bag, but Phil wanted to go on here and go on about Iris Rowley getting $200,000 as to contract, but they're giving almost double that. They're giving almost double that to a curfew center that has not served a single kid. Make it make sense. Make it make sense for me. Oh, well, it should just be insurance just in case we get some kids. You don't have one kid in there. Suddenly you're going to get hundreds to thousands of kids that would justify that kind of spend on there. Again, if I'm offending my folks at the nonprofit that's getting that bag, I'm sorry. I ain't trying to get into, unlike Phil, I'm not trying to stomp on nobody's check. But if we're going to be in the business of scrutinizing how City Council spends money, let's start there. Giving the police $700,000 more than what the police chief asked for in overtime, make it make sense. Explain that. Council just passes that or is trying to pass it without any explanation or elaboration about what that extra $700,000 is being spent on. Ridiculous. $880,000 for 3CDC. The rich just keep getting richer. For downtown ambassadors. I'm not against the downtown ambassadors. Hey, let's clean up litter. Let's do that. But what is the ambassadors program already doing? Like, what is the impact that they're having that would justify $880,000 more dollars for 3CDC? Again, make it make sense. Make the case. It's like City Council is cutting these blank checks and they're not doing anything to explain to the voting public what justifies this extra money other than you want to tell us that. Now, better lighting, I don't have a problem with it. I do have some big brother things about the cameras and the drones that can create some other invasion of privacy issues that concern me personally. But I'm even willing to overlook that, because better lighting, some cameras, maybe if we'd have had more cameras downtown, we'd have had a better view, better understanding of the brawl video and all of that. I'm not going to push back on that. But some of these expenditures, city council needs to give a better account to the taxpaying citizen of why.
Well, would you agree, as far as the 200 cops go, that it was very clear from what Kobler said and what Dre's
I'm not talking. I didn't mention
said,
the 200
and,
cops.
Okay, so you'll at least admit that would, you'll at least admit that would be a good use of.
I could get behind that. I could get behind more money to bring in more police officers, right? Look, that's probably the expenditure that makes the most sense out of everything that they have.
Actually, overtime can be very effective too. Because you have a little more flexibility with it. Dre can correct me on this, but it's a quicker way to get cops on the street, because you got to wait. The 200 new cops, you got to wait for people to go through the academy and the training. Now, the fact that the city council voted that they felt that the chief's request was too low, I don't see that there's anything wrong with that. She's not God. She doesn't have, just because she's police chief doesn't mean she knows, oh, this is exactly what's needed. I mean, she's under various pressures herself. And the fact that they put a lot of money toward overtime, and that it was more than the chief requested, I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah, I do, because that's money that could be spent elsewhere. If the police chief is saying, this is what we need, right? She makes a request. Again, she's telling you take that $700,000 and use it somewhere else. Scotty Johnson and Jan Michelle made a great point. Why are we spending money in other neighborhoods that have, there are other neighborhoods in Cincinnati that have crime issues other than downtown? If you're going to take $700,000 more dollars that the chief didn't ask for, use that money in some of these other neighborhoods. That's why I'm saying my concern all along with this council was the blank check. When Cramerding came out and was like $2 million extra dollars, you can't just give a blank check. These are taxpayer dollars. You ought to be able to justify every dollar that you're spending. If we gonna sit here, and I will say this, Phil, if we gonna sit here and parse $200,000 to Iris Rowley, and you want to know where everyone.
No, that's not a fair number. That's not fair, because mine is
it is fair. You wanted to question that expenditure. You wanted to question that expenditure, but giving $700,000 extra dollars for overtime that the chief didn't ask for is perfectly okay.
The numbers. Okay, let me tell you how Iris Rowley this year, so far, 6 months into the year, she's made $200,000. But she is, how many years? Apparently, her regular salary is $100,000. How many years has she been with the city? 10 years. That's $1 million. That's a lot more than that 700,000.
Yeah, well, I'll just say this. My main point was, again, not to relitigate what Iris is getting, but I'm just saying you want to scrutinize those dollars, but you don't have a problem. This is what I mean by a blank check. When you want to check certain dollars, and this is where the politics come in, where the personalities and people you like and don't like, you're perfectly okay with them getting the bag unquestioned. But when it's somebody that you don't like or you don't approve of what,
it has nothing to do with the person. It has to do with what it's used for.
We don't even know what you don't even know what $700,000 above what the police chief asked for is going to be used for. She said she only needed a $500,000
for more hours of overtime. You know exactly what it's going to be used for. People on city council obviously felt that they needed more hours. Everybody knows what it's going for. It's going for more police overtime. So don't act like, oh, we have no idea.
Still, we don't know. Kevin is right. We don't know, because we don't know. How could we possibly know when the police chief didn't even ask for it? She doesn't even know. We don't know.
But they designated the money for police overtime. That is what it will be used for. The police can't take that money and build a new wall in some station or build a monument, that money is designated for police overtime, and that's where it's
Right.
going to go.
Here's
So
the
don't,
bottom line.
They're
say,
already top
don't sit
heavy.
here and say,
You
oh,
know
we're
what?
More
going
than
to
half
do
the
it,
budget.
so we know
You
What do you
know
exactly.
think,
what, Phil?
Dre?
You're right. It probably will get used, but that don't necessarily mean that it needed to get
It's
that it needed
required.
to
It's
get used.
required to
You
be
know
used for
what?
police
Because it's just
overtime.
like anything else. If you give somebody money in their budget, they're going to spend every last single dollar. They're not going to be looking out to see what they can return to the taxpayers. If you give them $700,000 over what they asked for, you damn right they're going to spend every single dime of that, because that's what happens when you give people a budget. They're not in the habit of returning the money to the taxpayers. So if the police chief is saying we only need 500,000, it is not a wise use of taxpayer dollars to give them more than that they might not even necessarily need to spend.
But it may be that there are people in the police department who may very well have communicated to members of council that they don't agree with the chief. They may very well. I had a lot of relationships when I was on city council with people in the Cincinnati Police Department, and I can promise you, they tell me things sometimes that were totally contrary to what the chief was saying, and I might have very well gone along with what they had.
So you're gonna listen to folks who want to pad their wallets, who want to get that extra, who want to get come on, Phil. You're not gonna have me sit here and believe that these police officers, out of the altruistic nature, they people just like they want that bag just like anybody else, and they gonna get that overtime. I'm telling you, brother Dre.
Hold on. Can I call out some?
You what human nature is. They gonna get that OT. They
gonna
get that money.
Some indigenousness or some disingenuousness in Phil's department right now, because he was just talking about earlier about when they were talking. Brother Dre was talking about how the officers get paid under the table. He was like, "Oh, you mean they give them cash money? Like that's a bit like officers wouldn't want to take cash money as opposed to having it taxed through the government. Like that's like in the disingenuous part of it is he plays it. It's like he doesn't know." Like that's the part that when he comes across with in these conversations, like I always say, oftentimes, 50 to 60-year-old white man disappoint me every time. It's because of this. He acts like it's not. He acts like if he had an opportunity.
Did you say
if you had an opportunity?
Did you say
50 to 60-year-old white man. If you had an opportunity,
listen, you made my day. I'm 72, man.
72?
You say anything you want about me, you have made
I'm
my
just asking
day.
you a question, Phil. If you had an opportunity to do some work, and someone said, "Here you go, Phil. Here's $100 cash," or "Here you go, Phil. Let me run this through your department so they can get it taxed." Which one would you take? So that's why I mean it's disingenuous when you come on this program and you ask questions like that when you know the answer to them.
Well, first of all, when I was asking Dre that, I was being a little facetious, okay, and it wasn't a major point. But if you're asking me myself, if somebody says to me, "Hey, Phil," for example, I have contractors when they occasionally do some work for me, and occasionally some will say, "Hey, you pay me in cash, I'll do it for $200 less." I don't do that because call me whatever you want, but it's really not legal, and I don't want to do something, okay, even though it's unlikely that anybody's going to ever notice it. That's just my philosophy. I'd rather do it the right way, but it isn't a big deal about whether they get cash or it goes through the city. I mean, it's just not a big deal.
Or the right way.
Oh boy.
Well. Can I chime in, Nathan the Barbarian? Can I chime in?
Go ahead, Dre.
All right. Let's clear up the money situation. When they were given just straight cash, they weren't tallying it up correctly from the businesses, and the business owners were writing off taxes that were different. So they went to a system where you had to cut a check, and what was in the system would be directly at the end of the month. They would give the officer the 1099. They would know exactly what's going on, and you couldn't cut the money anymore. But
if they were given 1099s, there's nothing wrong with it.
So everything then was tallied up. And so what I'm saying is you had officers that would make, say, $45 or even $55 an hour according to the business themselves, and they would just write a check, but it's already tallied in the system. So that was easier. But now, even with, let's say, food trucks wanted to hire a police officer for time and a half, Now the business owner is getting punished for having to pay a police officer 65, 75,
If
85.
they're sending 1099s, I take back everything I said
Okay.
about anything I
Right,
said. I
right.
have
But I,
no
I
problem
wanted to
with it.
clear that up. So the business owners in Cincinnati are being affected and they don't want to hire additional police in this process. And so now you have a whole system where I said, look, you got retired police officers that are retiring at a high rate. Why don't you just keep them on the force, let them retire for 25 years, and they got the badge and the gun and the training? Say if they want to be now implemented as walking officers, they know the system, continue to hire them as a detail. So that's your overtime there. So you just let 200 officers go that was already trained. So now you have to have 26 weeks of training. Then after you graduate, now you got to go to a field training officer for an additional 3 months and you're on probation. So we're not utilizing officers and people's time correctly. If you already have us in place, if they would have said, Brother Dre, you have 30 years of experience, you had great community service, you don't have any issues with the department, guess what? We want you to come back as a 25-year and walk through downtown. And we're going to give you this amount of money as the extra overtime that you don't have to pay people time and a half. Once again, it's a ridiculous resource of misuse of funds, and the city taxpayers pay for it again and again.
That's a great point, Brother Dre. Is it possible for them to hire you guys back after, like, sharing in your situation? If you're retired, if you sit out for a certain amount of time, can they hire you back under a different contract? And like you said, that would eliminate all the having to retrain people, and not just you, but other people in your situation. And I'm not mistaken, they're allowed to do that after you sit out for your retirement for a certain amount of time. You can re-qualify to be rehired under a different contract. I think is it just because of insurance they'd have to negotiate, or what? If you explain a little bit, if I'm on something that.
Yeah, think about it.
I know the sheriff's office, if I can say the sheriff's office, there's guys that I knew that were on hired and they retired, and now they're doing what Dre just said. They're
Exactly.
doing, whether you call it
Yeah,
overtime or
they're called the
details. They're
specials. They're
still
called
working.
specials with the
That's right.
Hamilton County Sheriff Department. They do it all the time. It's already implemented. They know the system. They know what's going on. So they don't have to go about spending extra money. They just give a flat rate to the business owners, and the business owners are happy to go about and doing it. That's why I say leadership is totally using unnecessary funds. We don't know the fruits of the funds when we see it. And this is the nonsense that continues to happen in our city, and we stand for it.
I want to play a quick. I'm sorry, TNT. Go ahead.
No, so I'm just trying to understand. So you don't agree with the 5.4 million to fight crime?
No, I don't. I don't. Not because it's not allocated properly in the process. If you want to move a needle, you present fear. Fear will get everybody to do.
Oh, we just lost Brother Dre.
He was talking.
There it is. You back? Oh, he just jumped off.
Mm-hmm.
He was making a point about fear. He's back on.
I'm back on. I'm back on. Yeah, I was going to say fear moves the needle. And if you want to push an agenda, then you just scare everybody and say, this is what's going on. And this is why you see all of a sudden now towards this election season that now we're starting to see all of a sudden, well, we better vote for this or push this to fight crime. But once again, the money is being used the wrong way. The ambassadors, what are they actually going to do in that case? So I agree with Kevin. If we get more ambassadors, all they're going to do is call the police if a crime happens. So how are we going to use them? I believe
maybe they're cheap eyes on the street. They're cheap eyes on the street. You know, another pair of eyes.
Hey man, I'd rather have a police. If it's about safety, wouldn't you rather have a police officer's eyes on the street?
We would always want to, but police are way more expensive. And to Brother Dre's point, it takes 9 months before you get an officer on the street. With the ambassador program, you can get them out there quick and easy.
And when I see the ambassadors out there, I see the ambassadors cleaning up the streets. I see them, the extra people out there. The police officers are going to go sweep up the streets over the ride on Vine Street after a Saturday night. That's why I feel, I mean, just from the outside looking in, I think the ambassadors are extremely necessary because they're doing jobs. They have a presence, they have a look, and they're out there, cleaning up after people, man. That's a lot.
Yeah,
Again,
I
I'm
can
not
see you
saying that the
cleaning up.
ambassadors aren't valuable. I'm saying that when you're spending this kind of money, and you're being good stewards of taxpayer dollars, if more ambassadors aren't needed, right? Like that's what I'm saying. Like, you're giving 3CDC $880,000 without, like, most people don't even know. Like, I see the ambassadors downtown because I'm downtown. I see them on the square and stuff. But what kind of return, what kind of tangible results or return on the investment that we're already making in the ambassadors are we getting that justifies nearly $1 million spend more?
But Kevin, when you're talking about 3CDC, you're talking about the we're talking about the bigger development that they put in you guys' city in Cincinnati. That's a gajillion. I mean, at least in the billions. Let's say I'm not going to speak outside, but it's at least in the billions. So your 800,000 is less than 10%, less than 3%, less than 4% for the overall. So I know the bigger fish gets the largest, like the most win, but at 3CDC, if they're providing more to the city and especially on that degree, that's probably less than 2% of what they're offering, the 800,000.
But
It's not even about. It's not even about 3CDs. It's about the money. $880,000 for downtown ambassador. That seems like a lot of money. I mean, Cramerding was proposing $2 million for police. You're almost giving another $1 million for downtown ambassadors. I'm just saying, how do you justify that? Like, I'm not saying that it's not justified, but they're not explaining to you what these ambassadors are already doing and how spending nearly $1 million more on them is going to address safety problems in Cincinnati. That's why it seems like it's kind of another. And again, 3CDC already gets a lot of money from the city, so you might be saying, what's another $880,000? But it makes a lot of difference when that's money that could be going to other neighborhoods and other things that are going on where you can make a real difference in other parts of the city. I'm just not one of these people that are saying because of the brawl and the threat of Donald Trump sitting in that just means that you just spend money foolishly.
Yeah,
right?
You're not on city council. And to me,
look, you got to look
like
at a lot of the ones who are pushing it. Cramerding is desperate. He's at the end of, we talked about on the last program, people who are on that narrow end of city council who's on the chopping block. He's one of them.
That's my problem.
He's
Because
one of the
it
people
feels
who's
like
most in danger. So this tough on crime stance that he's doing, I think I'm not going to say it's disingenuous that he's not down for crime, but it's a stance that he's going to take that he thinks is going to help him.
It's not disingenuous
in an election where he's in danger.
It's self-interest. That's what it feels like to me. It's like they're using our tax dollars to campaign during the election year. That's what it feels like. I'm gonna run out and do this. I gave the chief 3 times what she asked for. Then you run out for the next 2 months and tell everybody you tough on crime. I just don't like that. I don't like it, not one bit. Use your own campaign dollars that you went out there and you stumped for. Don't use tax dollars. And of course, they all do this. You can say there's a lot of politicians during election year, but don't use our tax dollars during a crucial moment just to make you look good so you can get reelected. That's what it feels like. But even when I say that, I'm like, wait a minute. Am I being hypocritical? Is that just the nature of being an elected official in politics?
What I feel like in the same breath is like they got all bent out of shape about defund the police, which again, like I said before, that wasn't something that was advocated here, but overfunding the police is what we always done and what we always do. They're more than half of the budget, and in this scenario, like again, it's election season, they'll do all of this, and they're still not happy. They still going to criticize this administration. They're still going to say it's not enough. They're still not going to take accountability for their own shit. You know what I mean? So it's just like, damn if you do, damn if you don't, type scenario. So at the very least, make it make sense. I absolutely agree. Like the way the money is funded, like our tax dollars isn't just to be allocated, distributed in just any kind of way that is nonsensical. And then at the end of the day, you have officers that still disgruntled, that still don't, is upset with the leadership. You funding them and everything else, and been funding them. And it's just like, it's still, it will never be enough.
It'll never be enough. Like that, I've been saying it. There is nothing that AvTab and the police chief and the city manager could have done once this fight took off and he got caught in the. There was nothing they could do, and there is nothing the city council can do right now that's going to stop the voices from saying that they're not tough enough on crime. They could spend $1 billion and it still wouldn't be enough because it's bad actors, people with grudges, people with agendas, and people who frankly just don't know enough to really speak intelligently about what's really going on. But Brother Jay, we kind of lost you. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say when you look at the focus, when we talked about retired police officers, we have plenty of retired Cincinnati police that go right over to the sheriff's department as soon as they retire. I mean, literally go from retirement and they're working the very next day. And so the city could do the same exact thing and save taxpayers millions of dollars in people that are already trained through the process, and then deposit them in the communities the right way to have these officers do things and pay them for half the amount. And that's the part that they're not listening to. So when you have this 5.4 and you allocate it into different places and still say we need more police, how are you distributing the police to be effective? It don't matter if you got 800,000 police. If they're not being utilized correctly, then you just got officers with badges, and you're going to hear the same thing in a couple more years. We need more money.
You know, another thing that stood out in that budget meeting yesterday was I think the budget committee allocated about $350,000 for some type of licensed surveillance system, and I'm like, what is that supposed? That's not going to stop anything.
Well, with that license surveillance, if I can speak on that, if I'm not mistaken, Brother Drake,
go ahead.
When in our city, we have license surveillance in the point of entry and both points of entry in our city. So we know, and I like that. I voted for that, like to have that in our city. So we know when people are coming into our city, we know. So if they commit a crime, when they leave, we've got their license plate. We've got some kind of system in place so we can. I like it. So it's just.
What do you like about it? Because to me, it seems like it's more of like vehicle. Like recovering a vehicle, like recovering property. It ain't stopping nobody from stealing a vehicle.
No,
Brother Dre, what do you think about it?
Yeah, Brother Dre, speak on it for those of us. I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming you might know a little bit more about this than the rest of us. I mean, Tarris, you might have dealt with some legislation, but can you kind of explain to us and to the audience exactly what this technology is designed to do or is supposed to do?
Right. I mean, the license reader can hit at a lot of different areas. So if somebody's driving through your area that has just committed a murder and it hits on the license plate, you know exactly where that person is located, and it allows the officers to do a tactical move to see exactly where the vehicle is. I think that just on regular traffic stops, if it's just somebody with a ticket, I mean, hey, you got to use discretion, but it is an effective tool for individuals that do things, and you hit on that license plate, it will give people a better chance to swarm in and to stop an additional crime from happening.
Let me play this video. This is Scotty Johnson from yesterday, and I can't play everything from everybody, but I thought this was interesting. He was talking about what we just talked about, among other things. This is Cincinnati City Councilman Scotty Johnson at yesterday's Budget and Finance Committee. Check this out.
Like this, and I understand we're addressing police overtime, visibility, and we already talked about the exorbitant amount of hours they're working. So are our firefighters. If we've got $1 million extra, based on what the police chief saying, she only needs $500,000. Why don't we allocate $1 million to the fire department so they can address some of these emergency issues that I talked about a couple of minutes ago? I didn't, I get it. I get the perception, and I thank President Pro Tem Parks for pointing this out. But I think we are responding to allegations that just aren't true. They're just not true. Cincinnati is a safe city. Our Cincinnati police officers are completely overworked, and we can't keep believing that we can just throw money at it and it's going to solve the issue. We got to stop doing that. Money is not going to solve this. We don't have the bodies in our police department to get done what we want to see done. I think you heard the chief say that too. We need more bodies in our fire department. So these are things we have to be practical about. I understand the perception that the city of Cincinnati is this place nobody wants to go. Have you been out the last 6 weekends? There are people out all over our city. And they don't look like they're scared. They look like they're having an amazing time. Because I've been out there with them. So I just think we don't need to always just respond because people are saying bad things about our city. We got a great city here, and I know everybody's working their tail off to make sure it stays a great city.
I think he's absolutely right. Like, I've been out myself posting videos, man, please. Like I told you, you got a lot of people who are not from here. They are bad actors. They have political agendas. They got personal agendas. They got political thoughts. They want to flip the natty, and they're trying to make it seem like Cincinnati is something that is not. And city council, at least if you listen to what council member Scotty Johnson said, feels like they're acquiescing to it. But on the other hand, as I said earlier, we're in a different time. We got a whole different federal administration. We got a whole different leadership. And maybe city council just has to move differently because of the new federal realities. But
I think it was a swing and a miss on that administration's fault. They swung and missed. I think we should move fastly and quickly away from the whole brawl thing and all that kind of stuff, because it didn't work. I mean, if the more we give attention to it, and the more that we speak power into it, and the more we give them any kind of stronghold to the fear, because, like you said, the bad actors involved and how the story has just fell apart. You know, anybody who has any kind of opinion on it in the beginning, the visceral reaction, is not how they feel now. Whether you believe that anybody's innocent or whichever way you believe that you thought about it when you first seen the video.
You really think that, Tarris?
I
don't
believe
think people have changed their opinion not one bit.
The people, the opinions that matter for the result, in my opinion, what they were trying to get. They're trying to win this election, like you said, and flip the natty. That's it. The blip that happened, it wasn't, the ripple effect wasn't rippled enough. So now they have to find something else, because there's not, like I've said on this programming a bunch of times, the black community and the black community in Cincinnati, they vote. You know, if they would have pulled this anywhere else, it would have been right along with the Republican agenda of going into Chicago, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. Cincinnati, if they flip the natty, it will be on the list of the National Guard coming in here, and that's just my opinion. You think if Aftab Kiribal would not be the mayor right now, and they were talking about how Donald Trump had his way to do whatever he wanted to do, and as a playground, and it was a Republican governor, but that's not the target that they want. They thought they saw an opportunity to try to win an election. They struck. It blipped for a minute. It made national news, and then to me, from the outside looking in, the more they press this issue, it will hurt them further along, because they're not going to win this election. And then after they go and they see, and then the tactics, after they break down the tactics of how they tried to win this election, when they try to go for the presidency, it will hurt them if they don't. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing they're backing up right now. They're like, wait a minute.
I think you're right on. I think it's two ways of looking at it. So you got the election upcoming, but you also got the state and federal pressure, which is separate from the election, but it's kind of connected, right? So I think you got the mayor, the city manager. And I think they're working real hard with the state to make sure they don't lose state funding. They don't have to deal with any state consequences. I think they're working real hard with the federal government to make sure that they don't end up on True Social with Donald Trump saying we're coming to Cincinnati next. So I think it's two things. It's the election, but it's also this new political reality from the federal and state government that I think that they're responding to.
Both of you are only half right. I've been trying to get y'all off this conversation about the Cincinnati election ever since. I don't even know why we keep having this conversation. The best thing that conservatives can hope for is that you replace the Democrats on council that you got with other Democrats. Maybe you slip a Liz Keating or one of the charterites on city council, but this was never about Corey Bowman having a legitimate chance to be unseat AFTAB Pureval or suddenly going back to the old days of the Phil Hyman or city council where you had, a couple, 2-3 Republicans on there. That wasn't going to happen regardless of what they said on the brawl. You were only at best going to wind up, maybe you get some more moderate Democrats, whatever that looks like in Cincinnati, or you think that looks like. That was probably going to be the best election outcome that they could have hoped for. But Cincinnati is a decidedly blue city. It just is. You're not. You're not going back to those days. I think even Phil has to reluctantly acknowledge that.
Can I ask you this question? Can I ask you this question? Was it an attempt?
I told you the more the voters got to know me, the less they liked it.
Did they attempt? I'm not saying that it's going to work.
Sure, you can attempt it. You can attempt anything. Corey Bowman didn't attempt by running. This is big. This is more about muddying up AFTAB for any potential races that he might be considering outside of Cincinnati. They want to make him, and this has been the MO of the Republicans in this area ever since they sensed that his was a potentially rising star. They want to try to kneecap him in whatever way they can, muddy him up and dirty him up to make him an unviable Democratic candidate to try to win, at a higher state or federal level. And I
think you're right.
And they're hoping.
I think you're right, Kevin, but I think you're only half right. I definitely agree it was about mudding him up, but it's also about setting the table for future elections. When are we going to learn that Republicans think generations down the line? Look at what they did with the Supreme Court. That was a plan they put in place 50 years ago. There's a similar plan. The Flip the Natty plan is not for next year. They're thinking decades down the line. And that's what people don't understand.
And that's what it's going to take, because you're talking about flipping the demographics of the city. First of all, you're going to have to get a critical mass of white suburbanites, all of those white people that fled the city and moved out to Green Township and Anderson and Westchester and Mason. You're going to have to reverse that white flight and bring them back to the city if you want to try to change the politics of the city of Cincinnati. You're not going to change it any other way.
All you got to do is do what they're doing right now. If you make somebody fearful, they will give up their own rights in an attempt to feel safe again. And
they're not going to elect Republicans.
What you're saying is the beginning of a long-term project to make people feel as if Cincinnati is not safe. And if they can hit enough of a percentage, they can flip the natty. We got to stop thinking like, oh, Cincinnati will always be blue.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying they're going to have to. I'm not disagreeing with you that it's not possible, and that or that it's a decades long thing. But what it is going, with the electorate as it exists now in the city of Cincinnati, you're not going to convert those people politically in the numbers that you get to flip the natty.
We know that. Everyone knows that.
Like I said, all of those folks who fled the white flight that fled Cincinnati, they're going to have to come back. And as long as they don't feel safe, as long as they're sitting out in their suburban areas talking about how dangerous Cincinnati is, they ain't coming back, bro.
If you make enough Cincinnatians, enough people who have historically voted Democrat feel unsafe, they will vote red. They will.
The independents.
I'll tell you this. The people who live here, and this is where I say, you say you live here, you're in the city, you know the city. So if what you're saying is true, you're not going to convince those people that Cincinnati is not unsafe because they're here, they're living it every day. They're not going to buy those wolf tickets. The people that got to buy those wolf tickets are the people who are susceptible to not seeing what the reality is. And the only way that you make Cincinnati appear not safer, I mean, if they're actually spending more money on police and that's actually going to improve the safety, then the people you gotta let stuff get really bad if you want to make the people who are already here feel more unsafe if they don't already feel unsafe.
Exactly.
Kevin, let me bring up this.
You want to disinvest if that's your plan.
Okay, what they did with Cincinnati, in my opinion, is they just use it as the litmus test. We know that they're not going to flip it, but they have the dog whistles out there. They have the Fox Newses out there. They have all that can say, oh, the people in Cincinnati are voting against their best interests. I hear it all the time. They're voting another blue. They're the worst, blah, blah. These are dog whistles that they might not affect Cincinnati, but they affect the overall larger dog whistle of MAGA, because they can look back and they can say, oh, even with the truth out right now, I heard on a WLW, they're still pushing the false narrative. And they catered it a little bit, but they haven't said, oh, this, and this. They're catering the narrative, but they're still sending those dog whistles out there and using Cincinnati as a dog whistle nationally to say, this is how we're going to. We might not flip the natty, but they don't know no better because they're just a bunch of voting coloreds. They don't know no better. So, but we can take that same approach to another city that might not have a voter base like that, and then they can wreak havoc. Bring the National Guard in.
What's the biggest danger to flipping the natty, more so than any of this dog whistle or MAGA safety? What is the most dangerous thing is electing Democratic politicians who don't do what they're elected to do, who don't address affordable housing, who don't do the things that is more of a danger to Democrats in Cincinnati than any of this safety or MAGA stuff that y'all are talking about. Because what people are getting fed up with, which makes them disinterested in the process more so than flip, is saying we're electing these people and they're not doing any of the things that we're elected. That's the danger that Democrats need to be worried about. Instead of worried about MAGA dog whistles, start doing what people elected you to do.
It's more
the dog whistles work, and whoever controls the narrative will win. And so I think a perfect example is our good brother who was also a colleague at one time for Now Rucker in that race. When he ran for prosecutor, he didn't ride the blue wave. Every other race rode that blue wave and won, except him. And you know what was used against him was, oh, he's an activist, previous judge, darkening him up like he would be too woke and everything else. They use fear, like Brother Dre said earlier, use fear. And enough fear, you'll even have white Democrats vote the opposition if they think that, the crime situation isn't under control. If they don't trust it, they'll trust someone like the Joe Dieters, who he was running against at the time, over someone proven and a real leader like Fanar Rucker. And so that didn't make any sense. When you looked at the numbers, like everybody rode that blue wave but him. You know what I'm saying? And why is that? Why was that? And it was the way the narrative was pushed against him,
and his skin
politics
color
and everything. The candidate, had been holding that office for decades for sure. But still, it was just like the way people were voting, they were definitely making their voices heard, and he should have rode that blue wave like everybody else, but never underestimate the power of people being afraid about crime.
Yeah, and his skin
Wait a
color.
minute. I think that's too simplistic of an approach, because you got to look at, again, just to talk about the flipping of the demographics. There was a time when Hamilton County offices were all they were all red. They were mostly Republican offices. When the demographics of this is exactly what I'm talking about, of the city of Cincinnati in particular, shifted, that changed the dynamic. The prosecutor's office was the last remaining holdout of the county offices, and it was largely because of Joe Dieters. You saw what happened in this election with Connie Pillage when they finally had somebody who wasn't Joe Dieters. And I say this all the time, Joe Dieters got a lot of black votes. Don't think that there weren't a lot of black people that didn't vote for Joe.
Yeah, Pac-Man Jones. He had endorsements. He had a lot of endorsements from celebrities and from Bengals. I know that.
Yeah,
and why is that? He had that because of their perception about crime, right, Kevin? A lot of black people who voted for Joe Dieters, they did that because of the crime issue, correct?
But let me finish. Joe Dieters, had he run again, he would have beat Connie Pillage, because they ran the same campaign on Connie Pillage. Democrats, soft on crime, same thing, activist judges, same thing prosecutors, same thing they did with Fanon. They ran it on Connie Pillage. It didn't work because she was running against a candidate that did not have the history and the support that Joe Deters had. If Joe Deters had run again, he would have beat Connie Pillage. Connie Pillage would. I believe that she wouldn't.
Okay, so what's your point in saying all of this? What's the point?
That the candidate matters. That if Fanon Rucker had run in this election, he would have beat Melissa Powers. That's what I'm saying.
He might have. I don't know.
The timing and the candidate matters in
Yeah.
in that. Joe Deters was the lone holdout in a blue area. And it was because of
back in
who
2020.
That's a county
People were
issue.
so-
That's different from the city. But go ahead, TNT.
No, I was just going to say, like, you have to remember back in 2020, it was in a considerable blue wave. That was probably the highest participation in voting in history. It was. So my point is, like, people really turned out. The voter turnout was like the highest ever. And that blue wave was like, people was making a point to like vote against the opposition. So I don't know. It's just, I understand with the candidate, like I did say, he had been in there for decades and it's a stronghold, but it's still, even in that situation, he didn't win by a whole lot. But at the same time, I think it was an uproar right there where he could have rode that wave like everybody else. And with that particular candidate, he wasn't that great that he should have been able to keep that seat, because everybody else lost. People that have been in those seats lost on the opposition side. Everybody else, Democrat, this is a blue city. Everybody else got it except him. And that just didn't make sense.
But that tells you something, TNT, that lets you know that some of those people who were in that blue wave voted Joe Deters. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So everybody who voted blue, to what you're saying, if that was the case, then he should have carried it with everybody else. But what that tells you is either some of those people in that blue wave didn't vote for Fanon at all, or they voted for Joe Deters. And that says more about the candidate than the
and that
politics.
kind of makes my point, is that if they vote in, and I agree, that's obviously true statistically, but what that tells me is back to what I said, is that if city council doesn't get a hold on crime, that if people feel fearful, even people who traditionally vote blue will go red. If you sit back and think for a second that Cincinnati will always be blue, you do not know what day and time you're living in. You do not understand what you're dealing with. And I keep telling you, and the proof is in what we're dealing with right now. These Republicans think generationally. They're thinking 40 years, 50 years, 100 years from now. They ain't just talking about 2 years from now. They're thinking long term, just like they did with SCOTUS, which leads me to a perfect transition to talk about how the Supreme Court has now embraced racial profiling by ICE in LA. Is this a good thing? So basically, the Supreme Court has said essentially that, and maybe Sexy Phil can speak to the legalities of it, but essentially what they said is that race can be a factor that ICE can use when they're detaining individuals to try to ascertain as to whether they are actually documented citizens or not. Do you think this is good, bad? What's the long-term ramifications? Or, hey, you got to do what you got to do to deal with the situation. What do you think?
Let me speak to just what you mentioned, Nathan, about the Republicans thinking 20, 30, 40 years ahead. There's a difference, I think. I don't think Cincinnati will ever be red. The city of Cincinnati ever be red. When I was on city council, the city was blue as blue can be. But as Kevin said, the county was red. That just changed during my I was ahead of my times by losing, being one of the first ones to lose to David Pepper in 2006, who's actually become a pretty good friend of mine, but that's beside the point. But I don't think, I don't think it's ever going back. Certainly the city of Cincinnati is never going back. Your example about the Supreme Court is a little unusual, and it wasn't really Republican leaders, who brought that about. It was a group of private people, Leonard Leo, and there's a great, I think it's a PBS documentary on this, but it was a coalition of kind of conservatives, pro-life, pro all this stuff, generally people outside the government. And you are right, they had this scheme. And you know, it even involved, I don't know if you've read about this, they actually had people who would show up at cocktail parties where members of the Supreme Court were to try to become friends with them and influence them. That's a true story. And so what I'm saying is that this is something that is a little unusual in that they worked this thing out. Again, it was non-government people. As far as this particular decision goes, well, it is the law now because the Supreme Court has said it. But I think it's just horrible. And it certainly goes against years and years of Supreme Court decisions, which said that when you're dealing with racial discrimination, in order for you to have a bill that has any kind of racial discrimination, it has to go under what they call strict scrutiny, meaning you have to have some overwhelming reason why there can be some kind of differentiation here between black and white or any other race. And, to me, this is just another really, frankly, horrible development. And there's an interesting interview I read with a former clerk at the Supreme Court. She's a law professor now. And she was talking about how basically this Supreme Court is kind of serving as an accomplice to help Donald Trump kind of wipe away all of our traditional liberties. And that's a pretty scary thing. I happen to think, for whatever it's worth, if you look at everybody who's ever worked with Trump, they always get screwed in the end. Okay, I don't care if it's Rudy Giuliani, he wouldn't pay his fees. I don't care who it is. They all get screwed. Chris Christie, they all get screwed by Donald Trump. I believe what's going to happen is he's going to go, even for them, a step too far, maybe canceling the 2020 election, who knows? And they're going to rule against him. And you know what he's going to do? He's going to say, F you, and he's going to just ignore them. And that's the lesson these people in the Supreme Court who have participated with him in whittling away at our liberties, that's the lesson they're going to learn.
Hey, can I fill in on something real quick?
All right.
One point that I wanted to make is that Scotty Johnson, I totally agree what he said. I want to put that out there. And he mentioned throwing more money at officers who are already overworked. That was a key point that he said. So the officer already works 10 hours, 10-hour shifts. And it's a 5-day on, then they get 3 days off. So you talk about 50 hours, and then you want to add additional, say, 5 or 6 hours per day. That doesn't even make any sense. The officer is stressed out, and it's the same officer that has to deal with you on a regular basis who can't keep it together. And now all of a sudden he's wound up or she's wound up and jacked up. And so this throwing money at officers to be the win and save all is ludicrous. And I'm here to say it first. And I voted, I'm going to put it on the record. I voted no on the contract currently that the FOP wanted, because I said it was going to backfire, and this is exactly what's happening with this time and a half foolishness. Now I'm gonna just.
Well, Dre, don't officers do details all the time? The same officers that are working those 10-hour shifts, don't they all do details?
Yeah, but see, that's just it. They're doing less details than what they used to do, just based on the pay system and what they have to deal with.
But no, what I'm asking you is that officers, no matter how overworked they were, and I don't minimize that, at least from what I observed, they were willing and wanting to do all kinds of details because it's good pay. But what you're saying is they don't have time to, and I'm all for your idea, by the way, about bringing back retired officers, totally agreement, but you're criticizing overtime. And if they I guess what I'm saying is if they've always had time to do details, why would they not have time to do overtime? Why are they overworked for overtime, but happy?
So if you're going to get paid overtime, you get paid less money if it's getting taxed and not paid as a W-2.
But that's a different issue.
Because I do want to comment on the racial profiling, but Phil, what you're doing is missing the point. Is that the businesses suffer as well? So this is a two-part. Businesses pay more for the time and a half on the officers as well.
No, I get that.
So
I get that. I'm asking you about the officers being too tired to do overtime.
They're doing it less just because you got to wait 2 weeks and you're going to get taxed. So they'd rather.
That's
not
the
the
issue,
issue to
Dre.
you, Bill, but that's the issue.
That's
You're
not the
not
issue to
listening.
you.
You're not listening.
Correct.
You
has
ain't
nothing
listening.
to do what I'm saying.
He's
But
telling you
check this
answer the
out.
question. He's giving you an answer. You ain't listening.
Let me
They
go
get
to the
paid.
racial profiling. The bottom line is we know racial profiling exists. Period. It was here in Cincinnati. It showed that if a brother was driving a car with rims on it, he's gonna get pulled over. And this is one of the things that had to be implemented, was dealing with racial profiling. That the brothers on the corner with the white t-shirt and jeans, they had to be one. We're gonna go ahead and approach them and say that they were doing something. They were blocking the sidewalk. So all you seen was a twist of, here it is, the Hispanic race. Now you dealing with ICE, and they're going, oh, here's somebody Hispanic. They got to be illegal immigrant, and this is just a whole a process of racial profiling again coming forward, and it always ends up bad because children get hurt, families get separated, and it is atrocious what we see happening right now, right in front of our eyes.
And it's a dangerous, slippery slope, and it's only going to get worse. It's gonna right now they're using it to target immigrants. It's eventually going to re-land, you know, if it ever really went anywhere as it pertains to minority people. And eventually, trust me, white folks might not think it's going to wind up on their doorstep, but it will hit you eventually. You just may be a little bit more farther down the line after they get black and brown people. But it's eventually coming for you too. And that's why you've got to embrace this notion that injustice for anybody is injustice for all of us. Yeah, it might fit with your little political get the immigrants out of the country view or agenda that you have right now. But this is all a part of, again, a larger Trump authoritarian plot to put the knee on the neck of every American that does not agree or support him. And, you know, like I said, it's all cool when you're looking at them, just like all of these people who thought they wasn't talking about him and deportation, or he wasn't coming after your job when they cut. You're gonna find out. You're going to find out when you're cheering this stuff today, it never stops with the party that they're intending it for.
Yeah, because think about it like this. Hey, you could look at me and say, hey, I'm Bahamian. Hey, I can look like I'm whatever country. Tarris, you look like you're from the Caribbean. Prove that you're legal. And that's when it's going to hit you. If you're a Caucasian, you look like you're Irish. Mm-hmm. You could be Scottish. You could be British. We are where we are. It is what it is. So everybody got to figure out how you survive in the new reality. But yeah, how do you prove that? Somebody could stop me today and say, how do you prove? I can show my license. They could take my license, throw it into a ditch, and shit me out. And that's it.
Once you're gone, bro, you gone. It's a whole process. It's a whole process trying to get you back. That's the thing that people don't realize about this. You're like, oh, well, that's against the law. Well, good luck sorting it out while you're in El Salvador.
Yeah. Or you're in Uganda. Or you're wherever they might send you. So that's just a new reality. And, I think the people that are, like you said, Kevin, the people that are cheerleading this today, it's an old saying, the same thing that make you laugh can make you cry. It's all funny when it's somebody else because nobody thinks it can happen to them.
It was funny whenever the Democratic regime had the open borders and let all these people into our country. Come on, guys. Every action has a reaction. And I'm not saying I agree or disagree with anything, but how did we get here? We got here by loose immigration policies by the Democratic Party and Joe Biden and his administration when they opened the floodgates and let all the illegal immigrants in, when they let millions and millions in, and that this is a direct effect. If you guys wanted to keep the immigrants, y'all should have showed up better to the polls and not voted Donald Trump in there because he said exactly he was going to do that. He said exactly. You guys should have.
This is not a question. This is not a question about keeping people who are illegally in the country. That's a whole other separate conversation here. What we're talking about is violating people's civil rights, stopping them without reasonable cause. That is a violation of everybody's rights, not just immigrants. So let me just say, if I even wanted to concede your point about Joe Biden's open borders, which I don't, but let's just say I did. Two wrongs don't make a right. saying we want to get illegal people out of our country by violating everybody's civil rights is a piss poor solution. That's 10 times worse than open borders. 10 times worse than open borders.
Yeah, that's just talking points. Like I said, I mean, somebody can stop Phil, you too. How do I know you're an American? You look Scottish to me.
Right.
I don't know if you're an American or not.
Well, I've never been called that.
I'm just
before,
saying.
but, you know,
Hey.
I believe I'm Hungarian.
Hey, you look Hungarian. Your visa has expired.
Your great grandparents weren't born on this soil.
Prove that you're an American. So you pull your wallet out, you show them, you smash at your hand. Now you don't have an ID. Now you're on a plane somewhere. It can happen. You playing games.
Well, and I'll add on to Kevin's point about where it starts here, but then it goes here. You remember that the whole anti-immigrant plank in the Trump's whole agenda, and they're still saying it, is we're getting criminals. It's always some Hispanic or whatever immigrant who murdered somebody, or there's one where he killed this woman in a car crash, undocumented. That's the way it was pitched. But that isn't the way it's happening. I believe it's about over 60% of these people who are being deported, who have been detained and deported, they have no criminal record. No criminal record other than having come here illegally. So it was marketed one way. But again, I agree with Kevin's point. They always stretch it too far. And if you guys don't mind, I've quoted, there's a famous quote, but I'm going to say it again, by 1946, German Lutheran pastor Martin Niemöller. And you guys have heard this, but I think it's worth repeating. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me.
Well said. What I want to add to it is just the complete disappointment of this Supreme Court that is majority Republican, like the capitulation of our rights, basically the nullification of the Fourth Amendment. This is just basically nullifying or making it legal to racial profile. Simple as that. What was the legal question that was being asked is it okay to, and these were like the 4 racial loaded categories: apparent ethnicity, if the person language was spoken, if they're in a presence or location where immigrants are believed to gather, and working in particular kind of job. So like we've heard all the different incidents, like at a Home Depot or construction, is the same, like somebody said earlier, like with Black folks, if you were driving a car with rims or tints, wearing white t-shirts, this is some of these stereotypes to target and profile individuals. And it has already been deemed unconstitutional. So for this total reverse, like everybody's been saying, it's only a matter of time where, it'll end up at your door. Right now, it says statistically, foreign-born population, the Latino American population ranks at like 50.3%. Next is Asian Americans.
Talk about it, TNT. Talk about it.
31.1%. Next is Europeans, which they're not going to touch them, but they're at 10.2%. And then it's Africans at 6.0%. But the American Hispanic, or the Hispanic community, has basically become the largest minority at 19%. And that was shocking to me looking at the U.S. Bureau of Statistics. But at the same time, like I said before, never underestimate the power of hate. And so what they have been able to do is using that divide and conquer. So even amongst people of color, you'll have people looking at their situation like, oh, well, that's what they get, you know what I'm saying? And when damn well that we've been the victims of this as well. And it doesn't serve us to like turn our back on these individuals as well. But at the same time, the politics that's being used, the way this was all campaigned, it made less people care about the situation. And even people in the Hispanic community, because they had in their mind, oh, it's just the criminals, right? Like the bad ones. But no, they're taking everybody. They're taking everybody. And they're violating people's rights. And it's all more nefarious. The agenda is more nefarious than just like, get the illegal immigrants out. It's because of this fear, going back to that whole thing of the great replacement theory, which is a very racist ideology. And we know the Stephen Millers or whatever, he's like perpetuating all of this. So therefore, he has a hotline. Everybody can, anybody can call this hotline and report people and get them swooped up. And like we said over and over, it's only a matter of time. I could look Haitian, people can look. I really don't think white people are going to be touched because, in the thought of the great replacement theory, is because over the next couple of years, it's believed that white people won't be the majority. And so this fight to maintain power as the majority group in this country is real. And when you're talking about people's actions 10 and 20 years ahead, it's because of these things and all the policies and things that's happening around that. Just be careful of the narrative and what people are actually trying to do, because it has a racial underline on all of it, and it's really nefarious. But then when they start stripping away our rights, the constitutional rights and stuff, and nobody blinks an eye at it, that's the scary part. Because like I said, it takes nothing to wipe out your political opponents. One minute you're here, the next minute you're in El Salvador somewhere, and what? And what happens during the election time? And then you have, the National Guard in certain blue cities and stuff, stopping people to vote, preventing people from voting and stuff. We have to really take this seriously. And I really feel bad for like the Justice Sotomayor. You're at the highest position of the Supreme Court, and you don't even have enough power to save people that look like you. Like her dissent was like really just like gut wrenching, because
she's ringing the alarm.
She's ringing the alarm.
I want to piggyback on what TNT just said, because I've mentioned this so many times on this podcast. When the birth rate of the white race is not going to allow them to keep white supremacy unless they do the tactics that they're doing right now. The mass deportation of illegal immigrants. And then, like you said, like people like to say that black people are next, but I don't even, I mean, and I might get some kickback on this one. I don't think that white people are going to mess with black people like that, because we're cooked. We're already at the bottom they've already cooked us. They've already fed us the Democratic plantation. We kill each other the most. We have put abortion clinics in all our neighborhoods. They have cooked us. Like they fed us BET and twerking and all that kind of stuff. Not for the overwhelming majority, but that's the narrative. And we look at the socioeconomic level of it. We're at Black Americas. We're at the bottom, so I don't think they're going to do anything to us. So I'm just that's where I.
Tarris, are you telling me you didn't love freeing AJ on 106 and Park, man?
I did. I love that, but I love that. I love that. But it doesn't. What did that do for us as a black culture moving us forward on the?
It made us fly.
That's my problem. Where do we move? Where do we move forward?
Here's the piece that y'all are missing about.
Let me just get this one thing in about the great replacement theory, because I have to disagree with TNT, but not directly. The great replacement theory and the threat of that is real, but not in the way that the politicians have put it out there. The threat is not from migrants, it's from AI and tech. That is the great replacement theory. That's what's going to put people out of jobs. That's what's going to put mom and dad, on the welfare line. That is what we should be worrying about. We need to curtail the advancements and how we use AI. All money ain't good money. And that phrase has never been more truthful than when it comes to the advancements of AI and AV and technology. That is what is going to replace American workers.
And where are black people coming over?
Not people coming from the southern border.
Where are black people in that, Nathan? You're talking about tech and AI, all that. Because where do black people
all
stand?
People, blue collar and white collar.
If you go to these AI companies, black people are less than 1%. We make up less than 1% of the fastest growing technology in the world. And then I'm talking, like I said, I think unless we move forward into some solutions, black people where we are right now, we're cooked. I don't think they're going to care about us. I think BET and twerking.
I think to Nathan's point, AI is going to have an across the board impact. It's going to be indiscriminate. Now, it's definitely going to hit us as all things do. You know, white folks catch a cold, we catch the flu, so it's going to disproportionately impact us more severely. But it's going to hit them. It's going to hit them as well. Here's one of the things that I would say about TNT and this great replacement theory is that if Black and brown people were voting Republican, this wouldn't be an issue. The politics and what they've sold and why they're so hell bent on this immigration is, and it's not true. It's based in fear and false information. What they tell you is that Democrats and their open border policies is they want all of these immigrants coming into the country so that they can vote Democrat, right? Like that's the line. And so you villainize not only criminally, but politically, even though it's been proven time and again that there are no illegal immigrants voting in elections. That's what they sell their people on Fox News and in these other places, that Democrats are trucking these people in by the millions so that they can vote and they can steal your election from you. Now, all of this is part of the nefarious plot that leads to a lot of things that Phil and TNT have said about our fears about shutting down elections and doing different things. All of this is a buildup, and this is how you get people afraid enough to go along with the foolishness, to go along with the foolery and the nonsense. Because
and one thing about the theory that I don't know if anybody mentioned, that theory is supposed to be that this is all run by the Jews. Okay,
yeah, that's the anti-Semitism behind it. Yes,
if you remember the Charlottesville March, what were those
Jews will not replace us.
You will not replace us.
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, it all leaks together, and this is where Black people, I think, you know, like a lot of times there's some clashes between Black people and Jews, but what you have to understand is the white nationalist mentality hates the Jews and are fearful of the Jews as much or more than they hate Black people. In fact, much of the white nationalist theology is that the only reason Black people were able to overcome what they overcame in this country is through the help of Jews, who was behind the scenes helping Black people overturn it, because they have their nefarious overarching conspiracy to replace the true white man. Like, that's what you got to understand is behind this white supremacist white nationalist thing. So where Blacks and Jews is always beefing against each other, you got to understand that and they use that, right? White nationalists use that to their advantage, right? How they lure Black people in unknowingly to go against Jews, because they don't want no good to come to either one of them, because they see one as the ultimate enemy, the Jew, and the Black as the inferior person who's only able to get through because of the Jewish help. I'm telling you, this is chess. It ain't checkers, bro. You better recognize.
So don't fall for the divide and conquer. You know, it's time for unity. That's it.
Right.
Well,
hey, check this out real quick, brother Nathan. If you look at Sun Tzu's book, The Art of War, if I want to test the temperature of a race or circumstances, I'm going to see exactly how far I can say push something to where I'm going to sensationalize every Hispanic is a killer, everyone is bad, everyone. I'm going to promote it, because when you looked at Trump's campaign, there was so much about the Hispanic race and locking them up and the things that they were going to do, that people start to get desensitized when they actually do start to lock them up, because they say they deserve it. And so what do I see? How now you're seeing the National Guard needs to come into other communities of Chicago that are Black and brown, and they look at the crime rates, that is going to be mass incarceration. I said this on one of my posts, said get ready for a mass incarceration of Black people. And if Black people don't see that what's being played out on a consistent basis, then you are blind. Because at the end of the day, when we see say white males go into these schools and kill innocent children, you would think if that was somebody Black or Hispanic, they would do a national search and kick in everybody's house. But when you see it as someone that's white, they're not sensationalized it. You may hear about it, they have mental health, and it's done. But if we commit a crime as black people and the brown people, Hispanic race, they are coming after all of us, and they're setting to temperature to see if you sit back and watch it or if you're actually going to do something about it and unify.
Brother said a whole lot. Hey, listen, I'm gonna hope for the best. You know, Tarris, I hope you're right about this. I hope that it doesn't go any further than what it does, and if it does, we'll deal with it then. But listen, I really appreciate everybody being on today. We'll be back on Friday at 1 p.m. To the audience, thank you for being here, and have a great Tuesday. We'll catch up with you real soon.
See you guys.
Appreciate you.
Great conversation. Appreciate everybody. Thank you. And
Oops.